incredible episode today with one of the best investors over the last couple decades that I got to be mentored by. Mike Simmons shares the top lessons learned, both from a mindset perspective and a very tactical perspective on how you can win in any market and how you should be thinking about your business. You're not going to want to miss this episode. Tune in and watch it to the end. It's amazing. Welcome back to the Seven Figure Flipping Podcast. Today's guest is one you've heard before, but you haven't heard this. I have a friend and a mentor with me today, the Mike Simmons, the greatest investor of the state of Michigan. Super honored to have you here today, Mike. Mike has been a mentor of mine. He's been a stalwart in the seven-figure flipping community for a long time, and he's helped tons of investors build seven-figure businesses. So we're honored to have you, Mike. Welcome back to the show.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. You just said the Mike Simmons, and I was getting ready to jump in with excitement. I didn't know I was going to get more accolades, so I'll wait as long as you want to go. That's fine.
Hey, listen, your publicist said I must provide no less than 6 accolades in order to get payment. So I wanted to make sure I hit them all.
That was in my rider for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, man, dude, welcome to the show, man. You have been on here, I don't know, a lot of times. And throughout the probably like the last 5 to 7 years, you've shared tips and tricks, tactics, what's working today at that time. I want to do something a little different today. I want to do a bit of a look back on the last 10 years of investing and your experiences and some of your lessons learned as you're able to be more reflective on your business today. I'm just curious, mostly for my learning, what were the top, if you think back to the last decade, what were probably the top 3 to 5 lessons you've learned in this industry?
Yeah, I mean, we can maybe just start tackling them one at a time. I don't know if listing them out is going to be the most effective way, but whatever you want to do, I don't have them written down, right? So I'm not like going to give you my canned 5 things, but I love this. Let me just say this: I love this conversation because I have talked about tactics so much, and I feel like tactics sometimes could be a little bit of a commodity. But lessons learned from people, like I would rather sit down with Warren Buffett and have him tell me the lessons learned than explain how to invest in a stock. You know what I mean? Like I would rather get his wisdom. That's going to last for a lifetime. A tactic can change, things, it just evolve in business. And so it's not always relevant, but I love this conversation. So listen, one thing that was on my mind today, just coincidentally, and maybe I don't want to get too, macro or micro for you here. But one thing I've realized, and I've talked about this in the past, is if you give 2 people the tools to build a house, like, just using a metaphor, right? Metaphorically, you give them the tools to build a house. It seems like sometimes one person will go out and build a beautiful house and it'll look just like the print. And they'll be ecstatic. And the house maybe they build is even better than the print. It's just they did some improvements and they really did it. Other people will come back to you a year later and they'll tell you the tools were no good. The tools were faulty. That's why they couldn't build a house. It wasn't them, it was the tools, right? And it's like the exact same tools as somebody in a comparable situation as you. And so what I believe, and this is super macro, but if I scale back, 30,000 feet and look down at what I've learned, what I've seen. And, like you said, I have been in the 7-figure flipping program for a long time. I'm one of the board members now. Like I've seen a lot of people come through. And what I've noticed is, and we used to ask this question, it was interesting when we were in front of our members, but what's interesting is success and failure has less to do with the strategy, one specific strategy that you learn. Like there's no silver bullet. It has way more to do with what you believe will happen or can happen, right? Because we used to ask at before I even met you, I think we would ask this sometimes to Bill would say, "Hey, Mike, if you lost everything tomorrow, do you think you could rebuild your business?" even if you didn't have any resources, forget your private money, forget your team, like you lost everything. And I'd laugh and go, yeah. He'd go, well, what if you found a property, you didn't have any money, but it was a great deal and you needed $200,000 in 30 days. I'm like, I would get it. Like, I have total confidence I would get. I don't even consider a world where I can't get that, right? But all these little things that why don't people put in front of them, like, oh, I don't know anybody with money. I don't have any money. Like, I don't have good credit, or whatever. It's like when you stop finding reasons to not be able to do something and spend more time figuring out how you can get it done and that you can get it done, like those are the successful people. So sometimes when people would come in, or I would meet somebody for the first time and I would just talk to them about their business, in 5 minutes, I knew whether or not it was going to go really, really well fast, or if they were going to struggle a little bit. And it was more to do with the way they talked to me and the beliefs that they already had. And some people don't have to change their beliefs. They already have tons of confidence. Maybe it was unearned, but they have it, right? And other people have no confidence. And maybe it's because they got crushed in the past, or maybe it's just upbringing, society. I don't know, whatever. But I know the people who come to me and they're like, I just don't know if it'll work in my market. I don't know anybody who's I don't know anybody with money. Like, well, what if a contractor walks off the job? Like, I couldn't deal. Like, I know this person's going to struggle because they have a lot of work to do on themselves before they're going to get to the point where they can actually do something. Other people who come to me and they're like, what do I have to do? Just tell me. I want to do it. Like, I'm ready to go. And you tell them and they run and do it and come back to you and go, I did that. Now what? Like, they're going to have success fast. And it has way more to do with what you tell yourself about yourself and about your ability to get things done than it does the specific tool that maybe you picked up on, YouTube, something that somebody's talking about doing. So it's a lot of that, man. It sucks because it's sort of like soft. And I know that people don't want soft answers, but my gosh, if I talk to you and I talk to Bill and I say, hey, here's this problem I have and I don't know what to do, you guys are going to come at me hard with, well, did you try this? What about this? Like, tell me more about it. Okay, I get it. Okay, I understand. Now do this. I would do this. I know somebody who did this. I have a friend who will help you do that. And it's like, it would all be about solving the problem now, fast, with confidence. I go to my family or just friends I had in high school and say, hey, I'm trying to buy an apartment complex. Like, I don't know where to get the money. I'm not really sure how to do it. They'd be like, oh man, that sounds, I don't know, man. That sounds crazy. Like maybe you shouldn't do it. Maybe you shouldn't do it. It just sounds too risky. It just depends on who you're talking to, what the belief system is, and whether or not you're going to get things done. And I try to hang out with people like you and Bill because I want, okay, so maybe that's the next one. Number 2, right? We all have friends that we made in high school or in college or whatever on the job. We all have family that we love. Most of them are not the right people to talk to about our goals in real estate, investing, or in our career, whatever it is. So I learned it early on. I can hang out with those folks. I can have fun with them. And a lot of them I love like family if they're just friends that I've known forever. But I rarely talk about the business with them unless they ask, because they don't live in that world. And so they can't conceive of what I'm trying to do. And it all sounds crazy and scary to them, right? So you need to surround yourself. Yeah, you need to surround. And I'm sure, I don't know about the military. I wasn't in that. So I don't know in general, if you talk about flipping 50 houses, if most of them go, whoa, that's crazy. Or if they're like, let's figure it out. Okay. So they're regular people, right? They put their pants on one leg at a time. And they just can't conceive of it. So I found just surrounding myself. And by the way, confidence isn't always permanent, right? Like, you go through times and moments where you start questioning, like, is it me? Do I suck? Or am I really capable of doing this? And sometimes you need to refuel. And by refuel, I mean, get around people who are doing stuff, who are confident, who you admire what they have done and who they are and the kind of person they are. Get around them a lot so that you can fill yourself up with that. And the confidence sounds lame. It sounds, artificial, but surround yourself with people who are doing the things that you admire or that you want to do or that you are doing, and you just want to do more of it. You want to be better at it. You have to surround yourself with those people on purpose, because if you don't, you'll find yourself around people by default who don't fill you up with that kind of confidence and that belief in yourself. They're not bad people. I mean, honestly, if I listened to my family and friends, I would have quit years ago, and I would have quit at multiple stages when certain things were going on. I would 100% quit. And it's not because they want me to fail. I don't think. It's mostly because they love me and they want to protect me, right? And so how do you protect your kid from getting hurt? We just hold on to them. Just hold them close to you. You know you got them then, right? And so they're trying to keep you safe, but you really need to be around people who are doing those things.
I think there's two things here that are super interesting to me. That first point of the person who's just willing to go do it. These I see people do this all the time too, where they create a problem in their head that doesn't even exist right now. It's like in the future I could have this problem, so therefore I can't move forward. Which, if you think about the logic of that, it's like that's insane. Get to that problem and then solve it. I mean, it happens. It's a real thing. It's a mental block, which is why I love your second point so much, because I personally believe confidence can be transferred. If I come and I sit next to you and I see like what is possible, like it becomes real to my mind. Wow, Mike Simmons did 200 houses in 1 year. Show me, I see it. It's real. It's tactile. Now I'm like, oh, if Mike can do it, I can do it too.
Yep.
My confidence is, you just transferred that confidence to me. That's why I think I totally agree. Being in the room with people who are inspiring confidence in you, because they're also action takers, it can really propel you. It did for me, at least.
Yep. 100%. I think probably the next one is the one that is probably one of the biggest maybe fallacies or goals that people set that are in error, to say it in a weird way. And that's to go too fast. So I'm a living example of what going too fast, the problem with it. And also, unfortunately, I'm the guy, who drove 150 miles an hour for a year and never got in a fatal accident. You know what I mean? So I didn't really learn my lesson. I didn't get pulled over, so to speak. Like, my business went from almost zero to 100 miles an hour. And to convert over to real estate, 100 deals, I went from doing a couple of deals a month to doing like 100 a year. And I did it in less than 12 months. Now, unfortunately, a lot of people look at that and go, oh, that's amazing. I want to do that too. But that's almost never a good idea. Like, almost never, probably never. I'm saying almost never because I don't want to talk in absolutes, but it's almost never a good idea. And my company, again, just to totally abuse metaphors, my company got on a rocket ship and got into orbit and everything went wrong. And I was in real danger of that rocket ship crashing down to Earth. We had to repair the rocket before it crashed in orbit, or in whatever. Like, we had to repair it while we were up in the air, and that could have gone catastrophically. It went badly, but it could have been catastrophic. Luckily we did it. But the problem with going too fast in any scenario, right, whether it be in a car or whatever, is you get to points in your business that you're not ready for. You didn't really earn it. We sort of bought our way to doing 100 deals. And so by the time we got there, we were wasting so much money, so many resources. We had overhired in our business, and our payroll was so heavy and ridiculous, and our marketing wasn't effective. It was just volume, right? So we brute forced our way to get to the goal we wanted, to get to $1 million in profit in a year. We did that. But going into the second year, we weren't going to be as profitable. We were going to be significantly less so, because on the way up to $1 million, we were a little bit lean. We were kind of, staffing and creating processes along the way. But by the time we got to $1 million, we were so bloated and so had no clue what we were doing right or wrong, because we weren't tracking things either, right? So I guess my point here is looking at the unicorn who got to $1 million or $5 million or $10 million, whatever your goal is, 100,000, whatever it is. They got there in a really unbelievably quick way. They are unusual. That is not the norm. You should not try to emulate that. That's not the responsible. It's not the prudent. It's not even the right way to do it. I'm not saying you have to go super slow, right? Some of us are I'm very impatient. I know that about myself, and that's part of what fueled it. But doing it in a way that is responsible. That's a better word, right? Responsibly get to your goal. Don't get there like a rocket ship and then go, oh crap, because I could have not been sitting here because I went out of business or I wasted tons of money, lost tons of money. And my wife came in and said, this isn't going to work. Like, we're not doing this. Whatever you just did, we got to stop that. Right. Because I've had that in my past too, where I was going down a path in real estate and it went horrible, crashed, went off the rails. It was at a lower risk, like a lower, the stakes were lower. But yeah, me and my wife had a real heart to heart where she's like, we need 6 months of none of this so we can recover a little bit. Right.
Shut it
so
down.
I did. And then, my new life was getting into another rocket ship and taking it to the moon, because that's just how I operate. But it worked out the second time. It just isn't the right way to do it.
Yeah. I think that's the industry, maybe because of marketing or whatever the reason is we put a big emphasis on the kind of vanity numbers. How many deals did you do? You go to a real estate conference anywhere in the world, how many deals have you done? It's
Yep.
like, well, that really kind of doesn't matter. How much money did you make really is what we should be asking.
Yeah.
And even in our community for years, like, I remember on-ramping in here, and of course I'm attracted to it because I also want to get on that rocket ship. It's
Right.
like the only goal is to scale. And to kind of pull the curtain back a little bit, there are people who didn't want to have this crazy level of scale in their business. They were very satisfied growing by 20%. That was like life-changing for them. And we've had people that tried to scale to the moon and it didn't go well for them because they didn't do it responsibly and they were just trying to keep up with the Joneses. So that is such a good reflective point for anybody listening to this. For me, even as a reminder, as I like to also go, okay, that one didn't work. Let's give it a run again.
Yep.
So that's great. I think I'm really excited because I know you're going to talk a lot about this at Flip Hacking Live when we talk about how to scale businesses responsibly, how not to scale businesses, how to do it the right way. And a lot of people aren't talking about that. What a lot of people are talking about is, do 200 deals a year and I don't care how you get there. And that's a disservice to people, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think that the goal is the goal that you have, even if it's aggressive, like the end point where you want to end up, there's nothing wrong with having big goals if that's what you want, right? To your point, not everybody has those huge goals, right? It's not the goal, it's the speed that you're trying to get there. That's the problem, right? It's like if you want to drive from New York to Chicago and you say, I want to do it in a car and I want to do it in 10 hours, good luck. You're going to have to go 250 miles an hour, right? It can be done, but you shouldn't do it. It's not smart. It's not, it doesn't make any sense. So the goal is fine. If you want $10 million business, fine. Nothing wrong with that. I wouldn't try to argue that away from anybody. But I would say, don't think you're going to get there by the end of the year. If you're just starting, that's not an end of the year goal. Let's come up with an end of the year goal. Let's come up with a 90-day goal, right? Let's break this down a little bit. So I would say that's a big one, is just that the speed of achievement is just skewed because everybody wants to be there now. And they're looking for, this is the problem too, right? Everybody is most people, especially entrepreneurs, are susceptible to believing they can get something overnight. It's because you want it, right? It's just the responsible thing to do as a coach or a mentor or whatever is to say, your goal's fine. Let's figure out how to get there, but let's be responsible. Let's figure out how to get there in a way that's doable, that isn't going to wreck you, right? You're going to make mistakes, but let's not make everything where you're pushing all the chips in on every single bet where you're just wrecked. If you lose, anything goes wrong, you're done. Like, that's how I did it. And luckily nothing went so bad that I was done. But I had a deal where I lost $100,000. Like, that's insane. But luckily I had a business that could withstand that kind of an impact at that time. But I just got lucky. That thing going wrong for 100,000 could have happened earlier in my career, and that would have wrecked me. That would have been total game over for me. Luckily, my biggest mistake happened when I already had a level of success and money in the bank and things like that. So that was just blind luck, right? Russian roulette. The bullet actually was, to use that analogy, was in the chamber when I could take it. Early on, it would have been bad. So now you got to put a warning on this podcast. It's
man, we're getting censored.
Sorry,
for sure.
man.
Thanks a lot, Mike.
It's going to be more enticing for some people to listen to it when they see the warning. So that's good.
Don't take the bullet out of the chamber. That'll be the title. Hey, okay. You just inspired me to ask a question because I'm very curious about this. Like it's 2024 now. You get a chance, like Marty McFly, to get in your DeLorean, punch the clock to 2014, see yourself. And if you remember Back to the Future, at one point the bet book, all the successful bets gets handed over. What bets are you telling yourself to take in 2014?
If I go back to 2014, I would buy more properties and hold on to them because it would have been amazing if I would have started buying properties and holding them back then. Like the equity and the amount of things I would have been able to pay off and pay down, so that would have been great. I didn't hold anything at all. I was flipping at first and not doing a good job and barely making any money doing that. And then I started wholesaling, which was great. It was great active income for me and we made a lot of money. But man, like I bought houses I started buying rentals back in 2016. And I bought them in the wrong areas and I didn't do enough renovation to them. I made a lot of mistakes in that arena too. And I bought in areas that historically don't appreciate. Like they're just sort of like they are what they are and they're always going to kind of be that. And even with that like horrible strategy, I ended up liquidating them a few years ago and made a ton of money, but I didn't even do it right. Like they were the wrong houses if I wanted to buy and hold them because they weren't supposed to appreciate, but everything went crazy after COVID or during COVID. But if I would have bought more right in decent neighborhoods and done the right amount of rehab to them and held on to them, my net worth would have been significantly higher for sure. It was a huge miss, but it's like everything's hindsight. If I would have known, I would have bought a ton of stuff in 08 too and 09, when everything was at the rock bottom. But yeah,
Is it hindsight though, Mike? I mean, you talk to any what even maybe you consider OG investor, and why is it so common for people to say, what would you change? And they go, I would have held more properties.
Yeah, let me clarify because that wasn't exactly accurate what I said. I have friends and family who ask me about real estate, and they're like, "Well, we're thinking about maybe getting a rental. Like, what do you think?" And I'm like, "Yeah, get it now, get it." Because if you just pan out to the real estate like home values across the country, right? Like, kind of all together, and you just zoom out for 20, 30, 40 years. It's a 45-degree angle. It just goes up, right? In the short term, over a year or two, you might see some dips and peaks, but over the long term, it just goes up, right? And so don't try to outthink this. Like now is the time to buy properties and hold them. And, everyone thinks, oh, we're at the top of the market. Oh, it's so expensive right now. Yeah, until you look 15 to 20 years in the future. And then you're going to go, my gosh, I can't believe I could have gotten it for that price, right? Like even in 2015, 16, when I started buying rentals, I was like, well, I missed it. 2008 and 9 would have been great. I kind of missed it. And so I'm buying them overvalued. No, I wasn't. Not 5 or 6 years later, I wasn't, right? So yeah, it's a huge mistake that people make. Everybody wants the big splash income right now, right? They want that active income. They want to flip a house and make 30,000. Nothing wrong with that. I agree with that. But the secondary thing that you should do for stability, for long-term wealth, so that you can sort of weather those highs and lows that are sort of inherent to any business, certainly real estate, the way you mitigate that is to build that base kind of off to the side, right? That passive income that allows you to like pay your bills. In the first couple of years, you get up, this will just pay my basics. A couple of years later, oh, this pays more than my basics. Now I'm putting money in the bank. Oh, by the way, I'm paying all these down. So 10 years later, I have a nice income, no debt or very little debt at that point on these properties. And then all your active income it's just frosting. It's just, it's great. You can do it or not. So yeah, I think that's a huge miss. I made that mistake and most people I know made that mistake too. There were very few of my friends who were excited about rentals at the time. And I don't think it's binary. It's not like, oh, rentals, right? Okay, great. I'm just going to do rentals. Well, you can, but I think it's as big a mistake as just making the active income. You kind of need both of those so you can hit your monthly needs and not be stressed out all the time.
Yeah, it's the basic investing principles. You don't time the market, it's time in the market.
Yeah.
Whether you're in equities and stocks or you're in real estate, because if you look at both of those lines over a 30 to 90 year time horizon, they're like up to the moon, right? It looks like, I mean, at one point in the 70s, you could buy a house for $8,000. Now the median price point's
Yeah.
$430,000 in the United
Yep.
States. You're
Yep. If you
talking
think
like,
about back to your like parents and grandparents, were they savvy genius investors when they bought their house? No, they were just buying a house because they needed a house, right? And they bought it for 50,000, and now it's worth 800,000. It's like they seem like geniuses, but they were. The great thing about real estate is you can make mistakes and stumble into long-term wealth. You don't have to be a genius. This stuff all goes up in value in the long term, right? If you're going to start day trading, like, Bill, our friend Bill Allen famously talks about wholesaling is like day trading for investors. If you're going to day trade houses and like, oh, I'm going to buy this house and I'm going to rent it for a year and then sell it, you could definitely make mistakes and that may not work for you. But if you buy a house now, I can almost guarantee it's going to be worth a lot more than you bought it for 10, 20 years, 30 years from now. Like, it's a no-brainer. Our parents weren't real estate geniuses. They just bought houses when they bought houses and they held on to them for 40 years. Like, that's it.
yeah, but Mike, this is an election year and interest rates are unstable. How could I possibly do it now?
Yeah, go buy the house, right? Interest rates go up and down, right? A couple of years ago, we were all freaking out because it was 2.75%, and then it went up to whatever, 7, 8%. It's like those move. Those are, you can recover from that. Matter of fact, went to the dentist today, and the hygienist was just making conversation, and she said, "What do you do?" And I told her I'm in real estate. She assumed I was a realtor. I had to set her straight. I'm not a realtor. And then she's like, "How's the market?" I said, "It's great. Market's always great. Market has never been bad." The market doesn't have feelings and emotions and alternative, some strategy to hurt you. I didn't say all this to her, but in my head, I'm thinking it's always great. There's always a strategy to win in real estate. The election, yeah, would one candidate be better than another for long-term real estate or short? Maybe, right? But if you're doing this to start and cash out and be done within the next 2 years, I suppose you better like sit on the edge of your seat waiting for whatever happens. But if you're in this for a while, if this is what you do and you're going to be in it for a while, it doesn't matter. I am looking at houses to buy, to rent, to flip, to wholesale as aggressively today as I was 4 years ago when there was a different president, 4 years before that when there was a different president. I'm always looking. I'm not worried about that, right? You can't control who gets elected. I mean, you can vote, but you specifically can't decide who gets elected. You definitely can't control a lot of stuff that happens in the market that's outside of your control. Control what you can. Go out there and get, like, how do you win the game? Well, you start by playing the game. You got to play the game. You cannot win by sitting on the sidelines. You just can't. Nobody in the stands has ever won a sporting event. Never. And they never will. People on the field win. So get on the field. If you want to win, get on the field. And better yet, if you want to win, get on the field and get a great coach. Like, find someone who's doing it already and emulate them and get around them and get around people that are doing it. That's how you do it.
Yeah, I have this. It's interesting because I have this principle. You can only win if you play. Doesn't mean you won't have losses. Like, my goal is always to fail as fast as possible because I know I will have learned pretty significantly, and I know I can reiterate very fast. So I don't mean I'm aiming to fail. I mean, I want to execute so I can get the tactile experience to improve and go a little faster. I know I like to go fast too, but I can't go fast if I'm like trying to plan everything out perfectly, make sure I know every single little aspect, because there are things you can't really, even if you read it in a book or watch it on YouTube, you can't wrap your mind around it until you touch it, until it's real for a lot of people. And that's how it is for me. So my goal is, you tell me to do something, which this has happened. Like, over the last 4 or 5 years, you have been like, go do this. And I just go do it until I'm stuck and then go, crap, what do I do now? And then somebody says, yep, been down this road, try these 3 things. I'm like, okay, cool, no problem. Try these 3 things. But yep. That's what I did. I bought speed. I joined a community where a bunch of people were doing all kinds of real estate deals, and I just didn't have enough experience. It would have took me forever to do what I'm doing today. And I'm grateful that I got guys like you and Bill and Andy and Tyler and all these people in our community who are living it and breathing it every day. There's not an experience that I can't pull from on a daily basis to solve a problem that I have. Like there are very few new problems.
Yep, that's a fact. And the fact of the matter is, most problems are macro problems that can be solved in kind of a macro way, right? The problem is people are looking for really super hyper specific answers to hyper specific questions that in the grand scheme of things aren't the problem. It's the fact that they are hyper focused on the smallest hypothetical problems, right? Can you imagine if people acted as aggressively to hypothetical success as they do to hypothetical risk or problems? Like everybody has this, not everybody, a lot of people have this negative self-talk in their head, right? And you can't, it's hard to get that out without giving your brain evidence that it works. And the evidence can be you doing it and it working for you. That's great evidence. That's irrefutable evidence. But you can sort of, like you said, you can other people can transfer their evidence, transfer their confidence to you. And being around people who are like, oh yeah, oh, you're just trying to flip 5 houses this year? That's awesome. Yeah, I flipped 20 last year. I flipped 5 the year before, so I know where you're at. I know what you're trying to do. I get it. And this is, what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. Like there's almost no value you can put on that. It's invaluable. Like, because if you just go to your mom or dad or brother or friend from high school and say, I'm trying to flip 5 houses and they cost, the cost of the house is 300,000. I'm gonna try to sell it for 5. Like, and I got to get a contractor and I don't know any contractor. They'd be like, dude, that sounds, you could lose all your money. Like you could ruin your life. Don't even do it, man. Go get a job. Like that's what most people think. Like, and there's nothing wrong with that for them, but that's never going to help you. So you need to be around people who are doing it. You do.
Yeah, there's a really good correlation when I look at my military experience. We had this general who became the Secretary of Defense, a guy named Jim Mattis, and Jim Mattis had he said somebody had asked him a question about the importance of some tactical decision or something very nuanced, and he said, "Listen, the most important 6 inches on the battlefield are the 6 inches between your ears," and what he meant by that was how you view the world, how you think about problems, what kind of self-talk you have, like how you build your confidence. It was all, kind of this squishy mindset thing. You're talking about one of the greatest warriors of all time. The guy will go down in the history books. And even he knows your knowledge, your mindset, all these things contribute greatly to your success. Not just this one little nuanced problem or this one very tactical thing you're solving. Yep. And it's industry agnostic. We just find, I don't know if it's because of YouTube or whatever, and everybody's seeing all these different strategies and nuances, and they're trying to figure out their way in the world. Which one do I do? Is this one more important than that one? It doesn't matter. Just do it.
Yeah, 1,000%. And I would be remiss. I want to say this just out of conscience is, so that's a lot of macro kind of like get your mind right kind of advice and things that I talked about. But I will say the main reason why I already had a fairly good risk tolerance. That wasn't a problem for me. And just because I used, I've taken a lot of personality assessments and I utilize those in my business. I know how I'm wired, and I'm wired to believe I can for no good reason. I just believe that I can, right? But what really, from getting a little closer to the ground here, a little more tactical, hiring good people and tracking the numbers in my business, like just those 2 things alone are probably responsible for 80% of my success. Like that, it's responsible for 80% of my failures that I've had, and it's responsible for 80% of my success too. So I've gone through a lot of hiring and firing. I've gotten much better at it. I wasn't great at it. I certainly wasn't a good leader. So like just getting the right people in your business can transform it almost overnight, like for the better. And then layer on top of that, having a data-driven approach to a lot of your decisions instead of just making them from what sounds good in your head, like a data-driven approach to decision-making and good people in places that you need them. Like that's it, man. You can be sort of deficient yourself in a lot of ways if you get the right people to fill in the holes. I remember when I was at your retirement ceremony, and you were kind of talking about the difference between like the military mindset of like you fix your weaknesses, you make them stronger, right? where a lot of entrepreneurs, we do it differently. We're like, I know this is a weakness. I'm not even going to try to get better at that. I'm going to bring somebody into my business who's great at that. And they're going to plug that hole. So I don't have to get better at that. I can lean into what I'm great at. And if you can learn to do that, like let a little bit, it doesn't mean you should never try to get better. Obviously you should, but don't spend 80% of your time trying to fix a deficiency in yourself, something you're not good at. Like I'm not great at sales. Sales is never going to be my thing. So rather than go out and read 100 books and go to a lot of seminars, I'm trying to be a great salesperson. Why don't I just bring somebody who's a great salesperson already? That's their superpower. Plug them in. They're going to be better than I would be anyway, right? It's like I might like basketball. There's a ceiling to how good I'm going to be at basketball. So why would I try to hit that low ceiling or mid-level ceiling? Let's just bring in LeBron James. Let's bring in Michael Jordan. Let's bring in somebody great. I'll never be as good as them anyway. So why waste all the time? I do have things I'm great at. I'll do those things in my business. Bring in people who can do the other things. And like I said, layer in the data-driven decision-making. That's a winning formula, man. That's just how you do it.
That right there is pure gold. It's any organization, the ones that are great, it's because they have great people. It's not their SOPs. It's not their perfect process. It is because they have great people. It genuinely is the difference maker. If you go, football just started. It is the fall season has kicked off. If you go look at the teams and you rank them 1 through 32, the best teams have the best people and the best coaches.
Yep,
right?
They
the
always
top
rise
five,
to the top.
The top five, the difference maker is going to be the quarterback and the coach. That's just how it goes. The best people, and they got good coaches, and that is gold, Mike. Mike, I want to be conscious of your time, man. I know that you would sit on here and just spit game for the rest of the afternoon, but I think your wife might kill me. So thanks, man, for coming on today. We're really excited to have you present at Flip Hacking Live this year. I think this is going to be one of the most holistic approaches to real estate we've ever put on from this conference. And I'm elated to have you, man.
I'm excited about it. I'm stoked to speak at the event. It is hands down the best event, the best real estate event you could ever go to, for sure. And I'm excited to talk about it. And I do sort of love the theming and the way we're approaching this. Like you said, we have a holistic approach. I love it because I think it's right for the most amount of people. It really is. It's just the right strategy. So I'm excited about it. I can't wait I know I'm going to be able to see you there in person. It's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, we're going to have a blast. Even outside of the event itself, you and I are going to have fun. So I'm looking
Let's go.
Yeah.
All right. So you heard it here first. It's going to be incredible. October 10th, 11th, and 12th is Flip Hacking Live. Cool thing is it's virtual this year. You don't have to pay for planes. You don't have to pay for hotels. You don't have to pay for food. There's really no excuses to not come to this event if you want to change your life. If you don't want to change your life, then maybe not. But if you do, October 10th, 11th, and 12th, it's going to cost you about as much as a good dinner. So it's really not that much. I want to see you there. I want you to let us help you change your life and build your business. FlipHackingLive.com. Thanks for coming to the show today.